So what do you do if you're Costa Rica? And do you think they even try to go for 6 goals? I've got a lot of questions intertwined here. Heath, you go first.
First of all, as the foremost expert on Oceania qualifying, New Zealand only beat Tahiti 1-0, and it took them to the second half to do that. So it's not going to be as easy as we think. There is a great leveler in any of these one-off playoffs. But that's a lot of complications that you just described, Jimmy, in terms of the potential for suspension, which seems a little unfair. But I guess it makes sense that they have one more game, whereas like Tyler Adams just had to get through this game and now he can play the last one. It resets for the World Cup. That playoff sort of seems a little bit unfair that you have these players in danger. Having said that, that plays to the U.S. advantage, and there's not a lot. They kind of have to know that there's not a lot to gain from that, because for Costa Rica to try to score 6, at a certain point, the U.S. can just leave a bunch of players up and just go and score 1. And for every 2 you score, you give up 1 type of thing, taking the risk. That I think that they're a little bit smarter than that knowing there is an opportunity. It is possible to score 6, but the odds of that are really slim. Having said that, I've been down there. I watched the 2009 one from the sidelines. I was in the stands, didn't make the game day roster for that game. And it was, as Charlie mentioned, it was a long day, and it was start to finish, never ending, where Costa Rica just looked so good. Now, I don't think it was 6 goals good or anywhere close to 6 goals good, because that's a beating. Like to like the way the U.S. beat Panama and could have had more, like that was a pretty one way. And the U.S., no matter who they put out, I don't think would ever be exposed that much, considering the circumstances that Panama were in and had to take risks. I just don't see a world in which that could happen. So the team that they roll out, I could see being a balanced squad, maybe not their best, or risking I don't think they risk any of these players that if they're there, if they might have 9, so say 6 of them are probably starters, right, Jimmy? Or were 9 of the 11 starters like their best team in potential for suspension? I would guess that 9 could be maybe 5 or 6 of them.
Sure.
I just don't see why you start them and risk them for the game that is actually the most important game for your World Cup qualification campaign.
Yeah, so Charlie, you played in that game against Costa Rica in 2009. Obviously, as you mentioned, very difficult. I've been down there. I didn't get to play against Costa Rica in Costa Rica at any point, so that's a little bit disappointing for me. I have a little bit of a regret. But I did go down there and play against Saprissa in the CONCACAF Champions League, and that is very difficult. Now, sure, maybe club fans are a little bit different than national team fans, but it's super intense, and they put you on surfaces that aren't ideal, and they're trying to gain any advantage that they can. But this one seems like both teams kind of know what the deal is here. I don't know if we're going to see that same type of intensity that maybe you were under. Give us some of your playing experience of being down in Costa Rica.
Well, all the fans are behind this team. And we talked about Azteca having that added bonus when you talk about the pressure from the fans and supporters. It's right on top of you. And most players don't react right in the positive way. With this team, it's the same way. The whole country gets behind them. And they play to a whole nother level above what they're used to because of the fans. And the surface was turf. It was bumpy. It wasn't the best surface. And they could just run at you, and they were relentless. They also had, Sabarillo, who I think at his peak was one of the more dominant CONCACAF strikers. They don't have that now. I think they had a little. They
still have that. He's just 39.
Yeah. Well, I'm surprised he's not starting, to be honest. Yeah.
But you look at some of the players that they had then, and they're still playing now. So they still have the respect, and they have the experience, which I think is not talked about all that much. Keylor Navas, Cecil Borges, and Bryan Ruiz is that impact player off the bench. He can't give you 90, but he can give you 45. He can give you a solid 30, 40. And so when you have a group of players who know how to get results, especially in CONCACAF, which this team does, that's why this new coach who came in had set them up to succeed, because he said, we're going to focus defensively. We have Keylor Navas in goal. And then we don't have any big time, strikers. We don't have a lot of pace, but we have Joel Campbell, who can create goals. He's good on the dribble. It's very small, but still strong. He can hold up the ball, and we're going to capitalize on set pieces. They do that extremely well. So they play to their strengths, right? This U.S. team going down to Costa Rica, it's not the same environment as it once was, just like Azteca. They also know that they have the 6-goal cushion, but you can't play with that mentality. You have to play the way that they did at Azteca, the way they did at home, play for the win. If you play
Hey,
for the
Bruce
win,
said they got to score goals in that New England game, and that went backwards.
no, they said we just got to defend.
They said they got to go out and score. We don't have to score.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You have to go score. You have to win the game. And if you play that way, it's always going to be a close game, or you're going to win because they're going to throw so many numbers forward. So I think in this atmosphere, the U.S. players will rise to the occasion.